Hey guys, I've had some people contact me and ask me how I made that 600-yard shot. And first of all, let's talk about the ammo. Use good ammo. I've done this shot with subsonic Ely, which is about 1080. I've used CCI, Federal, Fiocchi, 1350 feet per second stuff that worked. You just want to make sure you have some consistent ammunition. And what you're trying to do, because the cartridge is so underpowered to get out to 600 yards, is you want to set your gun up so if you increase the angle of the scope in the back, you're going to raise your impact points. That's the whole key of this thing, is getting the scope set up so you can adjust and actually have accurate holding points, okay? Because that's very important, not to be doing hold off. And another advantage with a second focal plane scope is if you decrease the magnification, you're going to raise your impact points even more. So that's one of the only advantages of a second focal plane scope. So here's an example. Same scope. This is full power. You can see the first accuracy circle is 120 yards 0. If you take that same scope, reduce it to 4 power, this accuracy circle now is 180 yards. So now this might be a slight exaggeration of what happens, but definitely reducing the magnification gets you higher impact points. Now the mount that I used for the shoot was a Nikon M308. I took a brass or copper tube and I sanded it, trying to get as much of an angle as I possibly could in it. And after a little while, I discovered that probably the best way to do this would be put some shims in. So I'm going to save you a lot of time here. And you want to make sure that these shims are kind of graded where they start out fat in the back. That's about 0.175. And it gets a little bit smaller in the front. And there's a transition, that's going to be right here in this back mount, okay? And then you've got a front one, and this one's even thinner yet. This setup, just the shims alone, got me about 85 minutes, if not a little bit more, maybe 85 to 90 minutes. So now all of a sudden you put a scope on top of that, and between the cant that we've created, okay, that's the angle that we've created, and being able to change our magnification, okay, now all of a sudden we can do some pretty calculated aim points. Now, the ballistics of a 22 at 600 yards is very, very similar to my 308 at 1500 yards. So the neat thing about it is that the trajectory, this is just a little bit of trivia here, but the trajectory is about 75 feet for the 22 at 600 yards. It's also about 75 feet for the 308 at 1500 yards. You got 13.5 feet high at 100 yards, and I actually brought a target up to the range that was 13.5 feet tall. I aimed at the bottom of the target and I was lobbing bullets into a bullseye that was 13.5 feet higher. The reason why this is kind of important is that you want to make sure that your backdrop, when you're doing a shot like this, there's no dwellings or anything behind where you're shooting. I know the bullet is probably coming down into the target at about a 45-degree angle, but you always want to make sure that you have at least probably a mile behind you there, so if you miscalculate, you don't spend that long drive on the way home wondering if you lobbed a bullet into somebody's house on the other side of the hill, which is just an awful feeling. I think we've all been there, right? Maybe not all of us, but some of us. Wind. If you're going to do this shot, get out early in the morning before things warm up, because if you try to do a 600-yard shot with a 22 in the afternoon, the thermals will actually make that bullet, the impact points as far as even elevation increase as much as maybe 5 or 10 feet on top of everything else that you're dealing with. Very doable shot. This is how I did it. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. And I really appreciate people giving me thumbs up. And if you'd like to subscribe, I'd really appreciate that as well. So have a good weekend, guys.